Digital Storytelling Project by Cyrus Henry, Barry Brown, Wakil Peace, Jaden Dominic, and Shauna Ellsworth.
Argument. Brennan's ideology of the fluidity of society and by extension human nature is similar to the belief that Machiavelli and Freud hold about how human nature can bend to the authority of civilization or ruler.
Who is Sigmund Freud? Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939, was born in the Moravian town of Freiburg in the Austrian Empire. Freud later began to study medicine at the University of Vienna. Upon graduation, Freud became a neurologist and was the founder of psychoanalysis, a method that is known to treat mental illness. His research led to the study of hypnosis, which allowed him to investigate the possibility that our mental lives are shaped primarily by unconscious forces. Freud also created a different view on the human personality. Freud believed that events in our childhood have a major influence on our adult lives, shaping our personality. For an example, traumatic events from your childhood causes the anxiety in your adulthood.
Niccolo Machiavelli was born in Florence at the height of its cultural fame under the rule of the Medici family. Machiavelli occupied the office of the Secretary of the Second Chancery, a return of the Medicis. Machiavelli was briefly tortured and then exiled from Florence to a small estate that he owned on the outskirts of the city. It was from here, from his life of political exile, that he wrote a short book titled The Prince. His views were derived out of a concern for Italy's unstable political condition. His fame rests on bringing realism into political theory and that morality only stood in the way of effective government. Machiavelli's ethic of violence is connected to the belief that the great civilizations in history, such as the Persians, the Hebrews, and the Romans, all grew out of acts of cruelty, domination, and conquest. According to Machiavelli, human nature is completely selfish and full of ego, and that they will always think about their own self-interest. He even goes on to say that a human being only cares for themselves, their family, and their property. Because men are selfish, he comes to the conclusion that a ruler or a monarch should aim rather to be feared than to be loved. Machiavelli says that a ruler should protect the people, their families, and their properties, and this in turn will allow him to rule over them without any hassle. Justice is doing whatever is necessary to maintain power, or simply put, the ends justify the means. The property and women of his subjects, Machiavelli advises, is off limits. Unjustly appropriating them for the prince's own benefit yields hatred and contempt from the masses, which are sure to undo his reign.
Surprisingly, Brennan's views are more aligned with Machiavelli and Freud's because of their shared understanding that human nature is malleable and the laws of society contour to the particular whims of the time. Brennan argues that society has progressed past the point of using the death penalty as a legitimate means of punishment. He argues that by today's standards, the death penalty should be deemed as cruel and unusual punishment. His conjecture is predicated upon the four principles he derived from the Constitution.
Machiavelli and Freud convey the same attitude of the fluidity of human nature and subsequently society through a couple of statements made in their respective pieces. Machiavelli ascertains that a prince should be feared rather than loved, simply because of the sheer emotional control the ruler can wield over his subjects. He says, "Fear involves dread of punishment from which subjects can never escape." His quote conveys that he believes fear can compel people to commit to an action that they might not otherwise do. Freud maintains the same attitude through his own quote, saying, "Civilization has to use its utmost efforts in order to set limits to man's aggressive instincts, and to hold the manifestations of them in check by psychical reaction formations." This shows his belief that human nature is naturally aggressive and that the strictures of society can only inhibit the true nature of humans, that of which is aggressive and sexually motivated.
The end.